Hello, good day, and greetings. Pastor Sunny here, and you're welcome to my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please, I'd like to encourage you to do so. It will bless you, it will help you as I post great, inspiring messages, and things that I know that will be a blessing to your life. Okay, so quickly today, I want to speak about the principle of tithing versus the law of tithing. The principle of tithing versus the law of tithing. Now, I do not follow the law of tithing, but I follow the principle of tithing. Now, what's the difference? Now, the law of tithing means that you are following tithing as something that if you do not do, you will be breaking a law. When something becomes a law to you, it means you are bound to it. It means you are doing it because you are avoiding consequences. When there is a law in a land, it means it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what your will is for that thing. Your will is actually not involved in it. It's the law of the land. So it's something that you are doing because there is a law, and not something that you are doing because you know it will bless you, or you're doing because you love it. You see, so the mistake we make is that we follow tithing as a law, even as a believer, even as part of the church system. We follow tithing as a law instead of following tithing as a principle. Now, what's principle? A principle is something that's systematic. A principle is something that you are doing for yourself. It's coming from you. When something is a law, it means it doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's something that you must obey. Otherwise, you face a consequence for not obeying it. But when something is a principle, it's something that you choose to do. You might still look at it as a law, but it's a law that you create for yourself to help you achieve something. Let's talk about fasting, for example. Now, when your church or when whatever organization that you're part of is demanding that everyone fasts, now you would have to follow through, not because you want to fast. If you're going to take that as a law, it means you will follow through not because you want to fast, but because there is an order that must be obeyed. So everyone has to fast because there is an order that everyone should fast. So it's not because you are thinking of the benefits of fasting. It's not because of anything. You're just following it because it is an order. But then if you develop a principle of fasting within you, it is you making a decision to fast. It is you telling yourself every week or every month, I'll take out 2 or 3 days and fast. Now, you're doing this because you see an end game, because you see a result, because you see a gain. You see something that you know will come out of it. And so you are deciding within yourself to say, I'm going to follow this principle of fasting every month to help me. Not because someone asked you to do it, which would have now become a law, but because it is your personal principle. You have made it a law for yourself. So basically, a principle is a law that you gave yourself, if that makes more sense. So now, why do I say I follow the principle of tithing and not the law of tithing? Now you see, when you follow something as a law, it means you know that there are consequences of not obeying it. That's why you're doing it. When you follow something as a law, something is not a law until it has consequences. You know, if they say you must do something and they make it as a law, if you don't do it, there is a repercussion for it. And we need to see, where does the principle of tithing start from? Because before the law of tithing came into being, there was the principle of tithing. There was that principle laid out where certain things made sense, to do, because it had a profit, it had a gain. Now let's go to the beginning of tithing. Tithing started in Abraham, when Abraham made a personal decision to give God 10% of all the spoils that he got from war. Now, it was Abraham's decision. There was no law that said Abraham must give 10%, to the priest. It was a decision that came within Abraham to give 10% to that priest. Now, down the line, Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, made a decision. There was no law. He made a decision. He said, God, if you give me victory on this way that I go, 10% of what I get, I shall give to you. It was a personal commitment. It was something he decided on his own that he was going to do. Right? It was something that it was a form of him expressing his thanksgiving towards God for what God did for him. Now, that doesn't sound like a law. There was no compulsion. It was something he felt was a good thing to do. And so the foundation of tithing was actually laid on a personal decision that seemed right. That seemed like a good thing. He would have chosen not to, tithe, and nobody would have attacked him. There was no law, there was no repercussion. Now, but we're talking about the principle of tithing, where something that is similar to tithing began. We'll be talking about Genesis, from when Cain and Abel offered sacrifices to God. Now, these people were not asked or demanded that whenever they till, whatever they work for, that they must bring a portion to God. But there was that principle laid out from that beginning. How do I mean? One of them gave a portion of his fruits. The other one gave a portion of his cattle or his lamb to God. The one who gave a portion of his fruit, was not accepted. The one who gave a portion of his animal was the one that God was pleased with and accepted. So from the beginning, they've been that giving back to God from your harvest. So that's what I call principle. It's been something that has been practiced from the beginning. It's been something they have been following. We would call it a law if there was a directive on what should be done exactly, and if it had to be 10% of whatever they got. But we're not told if what they gave was 10%. We're not told if there was a law that whenever they plant or whenever they have their animals, their livestock, they should, whenever they harvest from their livestock, that they should give a certain portion to God. We're not told that, but we're told that it was something that they decided. So it was just a principle and not a law. It was just something they decided that felt good. It's like you thanking somebody for doing something for you. There are people who you give stuff, and whenever they can, they come, they give you back, what they're able to give you to say thank you for doing this. Some do less, some do more in comparison to what you did for them. But at the end, what happens is, whatever it is, this person is showing gratitude. Right? So, I personally believe that tithing should be an act of worship, should be a form of saying, God, I am giving back 10% of the things that you have blessed me with, which is a good thing. The way Jesus described it, Jesus never said, which you must do. In Matthew 23:23, when he was rebuking the scribes and Pharisees who are committed in tithing, and he highlighted the different things that they tithe on, he said, but the most important thing they do not pay attention to, which is justice, and the weightier matters, the things that are more important, they do not. What did Jesus say? He said it is good. It's good for them to do it. He said it is a good thing that they are tithing. He didn't say which is something that is compulsory, which is something that they must do. Jesus was just saying that was a good thing to do. Tithing is a good thing to do. But then he was telling them that why they are committed in tithing, that it should also reflect in their lifestyle, justice, mercy, kindness. In their lifestyle, they should be an act of goodness, not just in their tithing. And so, tithing is a good thing. Tithing is not compulsory for the Christian, but it is a good thing. Why? Because it retains that principle of giving back to God from what God has given to you. So that's the reason why I do not discourage tithing, but I discourage the law of tithing. I discourage people tithing because they believe that there is a law and there's a repercussion. And so if you don't give, and it has to be that 10%, if you don't give that, fulfill that 10%, then this is the curse that will follow you. That's when it becomes a problem. When you look at tithing as a law, it becomes a problem. There are certain things that, that you do. There are certain things that you do, and you feel as if you've broken a law. You feel as if there is a curse that will come to you. It's not supposed to be the life of a believer. Remember that we have been saved from the curse of the law, meaning that our walk with God now is a pure walk of grace. And so the actions, the things that we do towards God is an act of love. It's something we do because we love God, not something we do because there is a law that when we fail, there is a curse that's waiting for us. You see, so the principle of tithing is good. Just like one might decide, you see, that principle, of giving back from what God blesses you with. Abraham chose 10%. Cain and Abel chose a portion of what they had as harvest. Now, we're not told if it was 10% of their harvest, but there was that principle of giving back to God from what God has blessed them. And then we come down New Testament, the Bible talks about giving. He said, let every man give according to how God has blessed them. And so when we talk about 10%, when we talk about tithing, we're talking about 10%. You can never be accurately on 10%. You can't. Because no matter how calculative you are, you can't really measure how much God has blessed you. One might say, oh, okay, I'll do 10% on my income at my job. But is that the only way God blesses you? Look at yourself. Look at your life. See how God has blessed you in different dimensions. Yes, fine. Your income from your job. But then how about how God has blessed you in kind? Through people showing kindness to you. Things that would have cost you money. They came to you in a good way. They came to you, through someone's favor, through favor from men. And you didn't need to go through those things that would have cost you money. Now the favor of God came to you in kind. Are you able to calculate these favors and divide it into 10 so that you will be accurate in your tithing? You see, that's what the law of tithing does. The law of tithing keeps you thinking that no, it has to be 10%. Such that somebody decides, okay, for everything you bless me, Lord, half of it will go back to you. And then somebody who's a tither by law will tell you, no, you have to fulfill the 10% before doing the others. You see, that's where the law mentality comes. Is that the life that we're living as Christians? Are we relating with God, in that order? The Bible talks about the early church and how they gave. There was no mention about them giving 10%. But the early church gave more than 10%. The Bible says they even gave all that they had. So these people were not tithers. Are you going to use the law of tithing and condemn them because they did not do 10% and they just gave out of everything they had? They gave to the work of God. Will you condemn somebody who is giving to the work of God sacrificially, but is not making 10%? But a large portion of what God is blessing him or her is going into the work of God. Will you call that person a defaulter of a law of 10% or of tithing? You see, so if you think of tithing as a principle, then you will not judge the one who does beyond tithing or even does less. You will not judge another person who's not doing it on the 10%. Now, if you think you are committed or faithful in your 10%, what about the person who is doing much more than the 10%? Is that person wrong? Because even you yourself, the 10%, you cannot be committed to it. You're probably doing 11% or 12%, or maybe 9% or 8%. Why? Because when you factor so many other things that get involved, you think, okay, you got a salary and you took out your expenditures and you took out your net profit and then you divided it to 10% and you felt that was accurate. Do you think that was really accurate? Do you think that was accurate? That wasn't accurate, my dear. And so switch your mind from the law of tithing to the principle of tithing. So that if you give 10%, you know that you were following a principle of giving back to God what God had blessed you with. And for the one who gave more than 10%, the person was giving back to God what God had blessed him with. So one thing I'm going to encourage you is, don't stop tithing. But don't follow tithing as a law, but as a principle. So that the day you don't feel like you did 10% on the accurate, you don't feel judged. You don't feel like there is a curse that's going to come upon you. The day you find yourself not being accurate, you would know that it was just a principle you were following and not a law. Because you see, if you make up your mind and say you are going to fulfill a law, if you break that law, then you become guilty because you are following the law. God bless you.